Hi everyone and welcome to today's maths video. Today we're talking about rounding numbers. Let's get started. Firstly, let me explain why this is an important skill to have and why it's worth watching this video in the first place. Knowing how to round numbers helps us estimate numbers. Having estimates makes calculations a lot easier because we're working with friendlier numbers. And then those estimates are often very useful to compare different numbers and also to compare your answer in a problem to the estimate that you get to make sure that you're on the right track. There are various ways to round numbers, and these are the main ones that I've seen come up in schoolwork. The first one is rounding to the leading or first digit, which means that the place value of the first digit will define what you're rounding that number to. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail shortly. Then the very common one that I see is rounding to the nearest multiple of 10. It might ask you to round to the nearest 10, nearest 100, nearest 1,000, and so on. You might also be asked to do the same sort of thing but in decimals, to the nearest decimal multiple of 10, 10th, 100th, and so on. And then you might be asked to round money. Now in Australia, this is a really important skill because we round all of our money values to the nearest 10 or 5 cents. We don't have 1 or 2 cent pieces in Australia anymore, and so we must round our money. To help you understand rounding, you might use some of these visual strategies. I'm just going to move my face down here so that you can see this third one. Let's have a look at the first one over here, the rainbow spaghetti mountain. I've seen this described in various ways. You might look at it as a rainbow. You might look at it as a pile of spaghetti with meatballs on the top where the 5 is there. You might also consider it as a mountain. But the main idea is that you climb up one side of this mountain or rainbow or mound of spaghetti. And that the halfway point between the number you've passed and the number you're heading to for your rounding is in the middle. For example, if we're rounding to the nearest 10, we start with the number that we passed that was the last multiple of 10. We're going to end up at the next multiple of 10. And halfway between each 10 is the number 5. The same idea applies here with the swimming pool. One end is the place you could round down to, the nearest multiple of 10. The next one is the place you could round up to, the next multiple of 10, and halfway between the two in the middle of the swimming pool is 5, the halfway point between those two numbers. And the same thing here on the number line. This is a number line which highlights the multiples of 10, 30. The next multiple of 10 would be 40. In the middle would be 35. And we're looking at placing the number 36 on that number line. Now, each of these gives you an idea about where numbers will sit in the visual strategy. For example, the number 2 over here would sit somewhere like that, down on the uphill part of the mountain. The number 8 would be over this side. Then if we go to the pool, somewhere down here for a 1 or 2, somewhere up here for a 7 or an 8. And it's even clearer on the number line because each of these marks represents a number. Now, coming back over to the rainbow, the placement of the number that you're looking at will tell you whether we round it down, back down, or whether we round it up. And the only tricky one will be the number 5. Anything on this side is going to round down. Imagine the meatball rolls down. And vice versa, anything on this side is going to round up or roll down to the 10. But what about numbers which sit up the top? Well, if you were climbing a mountain, and this is why I like this particular image as a mountain, if you're climbing a mountain and you climb up one side and you get to the top, wouldn't you be most keen to see what's on the other side if it's going to be the same distance to go down one side or the other? Yes, I think that's right. And if so, it makes sense then to round up and keep going if you've already made it halfway. In the same way, if you dive into a pool and you need to get out very quickly and you're only a tiny distance from the beginning and the start of the pool, you're going to go back to where you started from. And the same is true if you're almost finished your lap. You'd round up and go to the end. But if you're at the halfway mark, you could go either way. So you might as well finish the lap, right? Since you're already halfway. So again, 5 and up, halfway or more, we move on. And here you can see 36 in this particular image on the number line is 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps up to 40, or 6 jumps down to 30. 4 is less than 6. We're closer, we're going to jump up. But if I was at the halfway mark, it's an equal number of jumps, 5 or 5, I'm going to jump up. We always go up, round up if we're halfway. Now, these examples ask us to round to the leading digit. So in the first example, there's only 2 digits, 65. The leading digit is in the tens place, so we're rounding to the nearest 10. So it would be either 60, which is a multiple of 10, or 70, which is a multiple of 10. How did I work that out? Well, I looked at the number. That would have been the last multiple of 10 we went past. And it's a 6, so I know that would have been 60. From there, I think about multiples of 10, and I know that if I'm counting in tens, the next multiple of 10 is going to be 70. 60, 70. So 70 is my other option. Then I look to the number to the right of the one I'm rounding to. In this case, it's a 5. And that tells me whether I'm going to go back down the mountain, whether I'm going to climb over the top. And in this instance, we have a 5. And if you remember from the last slide, if we're at 5 or higher, we always round up. So that number would round up to 70. You can pause the video now and have a look at the other examples here if you like. I'm going to come back and show you how to quickly solve them in a moment. Okay, if you had a go at those on your own, good luck. Let's see how we went. This example, we're going to be rounding to the nearest 100 because there's 3 digits in this number. I have 300. If I'm counting in hundreds, the last 100 I went past was 300. The next one I'd be going to would be 400. I look at the number to the right and it's an 8, 89. 8 is higher than 5, so I'm rounding up to 400. This next one, 4,912, we're rounding to the nearest 1,000 because it's a leading digit and the number has 4 digits, so it's in the thousands column. The last 1,000 I went past was 4. If I'm counting in thousands, the next one I'm going to get to is 5,000. I look to the number at the right of the one I'm rounding to. It's a 9. 9 is greater than 5, so I'm rounding up to 5,000. And here, 645,023. 600,000 was the last 100,000 we went past. The next 100,000 would be 700,000. I look to the right, it's a 4. 4, I round down. I'm going to go back down to 600,000. Now, I just want you to think about something when it comes to rounding to the leading digit. If we're rounding a small number, it's not much difference between 60 and 70. For example, if I use this rounding to the leading digit to work out how many chairs to put out for a meeting, and I was rounding either down to 60 chairs or up to 70 chairs. Not a huge difference to get 10 more chairs out if I happen to be wrong. However, if you look at my last example here, the difference between 600,000 and 700,000 is a lot. So it's 100,000, isn't it? It's different. So rounding down to 600,000 gives me an answer which is far different from 700,000. It's not really a very close estimate for most situations because 645,000 is really almost halfway to 700,000. So if I needed to put seats in a stadium to accommodate a crowd and I rounded it down to 600,000, that could leave 45,000 people without a space. A stadium's probably not a realistic example. Maybe something in a city that I had to accommodate for all the people. There'd be 45,000 people missing out. That's a lot of people, right? So sometimes the leading digit doesn't give you a very precise kind of answer. It's not always the best use of rounding. Rounding to the nearest 10, you can pause now and I want you to have a look at these numbers. Remember though, in this case, we're only looking at the tens place value. So in 65, we're going to be rounding that whole number because the first digit's in the tens column. With 389, we're going to be rounding to either 380 or 390 because it's just the last two digits that we're rounding to the nearest 10. 4,912, well, this is the bit. 4,910 or 4,920. And then the same thing down here. Okay, pause the video and when you're ready, we'll have a look. Okay, as we said before, 5 rounds up. So this is going to become 70. As we said before, 9, big numbers, higher than 5, round up. So it's going to become 89 is going to round up to 90, 390. 4,912. 2 is less than 5, so we're going to round down to 4,910. And this number, 8,290,467, the 67 is going to round up because 7 is higher than 5. It's going to become 70. You can pause here and have a look at these examples. Rounding to the nearest 100, we'll use the same strategy, but we're looking at the hundreds column in each number. And the last two digits in each number will need to become zeros. So for example, on this third one, are we going to go down to 400 or up to 500? Pause the video, have a go, and we'll talk about them quickly. Okay, so the first one, 89. 8 is bigger than 5, so we're rounding up to 400,000. 400, just 400. 92,215. 15. 1 is less than 5, so we're rounding down to 200. 92,200. And this one here, 8,290,467. We're rounding the hundreds over here, the 4. 6 is higher than 5, so we're rounding up to 500, making the number 8,290,500. Okay, nearest 1,000. Again, we'd do the same thing, but you're only rounding the thousands column. And then the nearest 5 cents. Now with money, we have a little bit of a different rule. You can see down there where I'm circling. If the number ends in a 1 or a 2, we're going to round down, back down to 0, to the nearest 10. If it's 3 and 4, that should say, it rounds up. So that would be 44 would round up to 45, 43 would round up to 45. 6 and 7 we round down, and 8 and 9 we round up. So pause now and have a quick look at these examples. Okay, and we're going to look at them together now. $3.23, well 3 and 4 round up, so it becomes $3.25. $5.99, well the 9 rounds up and it becomes $6. $73.12, well 1 and 2 round down, so it becomes $73.10. $789.48, 8 rounds up, so this becomes $50. $789.50. Now you might be thinking, why would businesses ever use a number which is going to round down? But the truth is that it all works out eventually. Some numbers round down, some round up. So overall, consumers aren't paying more. Keeps it fair. So in summary, We talked about when to use rounding. We've talked about some of the benefits of rounding, making it easier to do calculations, but also some of the risks depending on what you round the number to and how different it might be from the original number. We've looked at some visual concepts and strategies, and you can decide which one works best for you, or maybe a combination. And finally, we've looked at some different ways you can round numbers. I hope that's helpful. If you have any more questions, please pop them in the comments below, and I'll keep an eye on that. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with new videos as they come out as well. Thank you. Bye.